Hello everyone, and welcome to my lore breakdown for Path of Exile Act 3. Now in this video I'll guide you through the third act of Path of Exile 2, and I'll pause at key moments to dive deeper into the factions, the characters, and the historical references that shape the story. A massive thank you to Kerzahd and Nemorga for their help with the script. They are the moderators of the Discord. Make sure to join, link in the description. Now, let's get started. After the events of Act 2, we find out that the Hooded One is in fact Sin, and we plan to break off from the caravan in order to travel to the ruins of Exile to find a weapon against corruption, while the caravan will keep tracking the beast. The caravan reaches the edge of Exile, stopping in a place called the Sandswept Marsh, the remains of an old settlement. Buildings lean, their stonework cracked, some barely standing. An abandoned logbook lies in the debris. It speaks of a lost expedition, a group forced off their path by strange figures. They describe painted men moving through the trees, always watching, never attacking. Then, suddenly, the pursuit stopped. The explorers reached the marsh, but their hunters did not follow. The reason is unclear. This entry speaks of a desperate sprint towards the Ziggurat Encampment. The writer does not say if they made it. Continuing forward, you follow the same path. At last, the ruins give way to something new. A camp stands at the edge of the marsh, built around the remains of an ancient structure, the Ziggurat Encampment. At the entrance of the camp, a woman sorts through stone fragments and brittle parchment. Alva Velai. She calls herself an archaeologist, but treasure hunter might be more fitting. Her goal is not just to recover relics, but to form an entire society dedicated to uncovering Rayclast's buried past. She speaks of the Vaal with admiration, but also unease. Their knowledge was unmatched, their ambition dangerous. And this is a good moment to pause and talk to you about the Vaal. The Vaal are one of the earliest recorded civilization in Rayclast, reaching the height of their power as the most dominant empire in the region. Their culture was deeply rooted in thaumaturgy, human sacrifice, and the use of gems, powerful artifacts capable of channeling soul energy. During their reign, the Vaal established a tiered social hierarchy based on brutal competition, with nobles vying for power through any means. Among them, Doriani, the empire's foremost thaumaturge, conducted secretive and often horrific experiments in pursuit of understanding corruption and immortality. Queen Atsiri was the last and most infamous ruler of the Vaal Empire. She was renowned for her beauty, intelligence, and vanity. Atsiri wielded absolute authority over her people. She was obsessed with eternal youth and immortality, leading her to encourage increasingly extreme and inhumane experiments under the guidance of Doriani. Under her rule, sacrifice became a daily ritual, with thousands of Vaal citizens being used to fuel the power of soul gems. As the empire approached its peak, its citizens became adorned with gems, a symbol of their thaumaturgical prowess. Atsiri's obsession with power and beauty led her to conduct a final, desperate experiment, one that would either grant immortality or doom her civilization in what we now know as the Vaal Cataclysm. Now take note, because this is important. The Vaal Cataclysm was the apocalyptic event that resulted in the total collapse of the Vaal Empire. This happened around 400 BIC. BIC means before Imperialis Conceptus, which is the foundation of the Eternal Empire. To give you some context, we are currently in 1619 IC. Evidence suggests that Doriani's final experiment, an attempt to harness the power of the beast, went horribly wrong. The Vaal had constructed an advanced device deep within Exile, intended as a last resort against the encroaching corruption. This project, commissioned by Doriani, was kept so secret that even Atsiri was unaware of its full purpose. However, it was never completed in time. As Atsiri attempted to commune with the beast, the resulting energy surge triggered a catastrophic reaction, unleashing untold destruction across the entirety of Wraeclast. The disaster annihilated nearly all Vaal cities, leaving only 3,000 survivors, who sought refuge with the nearby Atsmeri tribes. These refugees assimilated into the Asmeri society, leaving behind only ruins and fragmented records of their once great empire. So we think. The ruins of the Vaal civilization remained scattered across Wraeclast, filled with deadly remnants of their experiments. The Ziggurat of Exile, the flooded temples, and the lost tombs continue to hide the secrets of their fall. Modern archaeologists and explorers, such as Alva, who herself comes from a Vaal lineage, have sought to uncover these mysteries. But the risks are great. Tampering with Vaal relics often awakens ancient horrors that should have remained buried. Okay? Now, we understand what the Vaal are, what their culture is all about, and what happened to them. So let's get back to the current story. The structure beneath the encampment is no ordinary ruin. It's a ziggurat, a temple from the final days of the Vaal. There are stories of a device hidden within, a last resort against the disaster that consumed them. Even Alva does not know exactly what it is, only that it was built in secrecy, hidden even from Queen Atsiri herself, as I've already mentioned. The writings she has translated speak of it with caution, as if activating it meant abandoning everything they had built. Whatever its purpose, it remains sealed, away beneath the water. The city must be drained before it can be reached. Also in the camp is Oswald. Now, he oversees supplies and trade. He is cautious, always expecting the worst. He does not search for artifacts himself, but he catalogs everything that comes to the camp. He has seen too many explorers meet their end in the jungle and expects the same fate for most who arrive, including yourself. His records are less about history and more about survival, the list of dangers, the lost expeditions, and the many ways one might die before even reaching the ruins. Beyond the camp, others have lived in these lands for generations. Survey, a guide from one of the local tribes, knows the jungle better than anyone. The deeper the ruins go, the more dangerous they become. The tribes of the Orok and the Azak have fought over these lands for as long as she can remember. Their war fueled by something older than them. And finally, Sin, the hooded one, stands apart from the others. The camp treats him as an outsider, uncertain of who or what he is. He does not really care. He looks over the ruins in silence, lost in thought. The Vaal were once the most powerful civilization on Wraeclast. Now their temples sink beneath mud and water, their stories fading into dust. He does not say it, but something weighs on him. He once walked among them. He knew their leaders, their cities, their struggles. Now he sees only their failures. Whether he played a role in that failure, he does not yet say. You must find a way to drain the city, and so you step into the dense jungle. The deeper you go, the harder it is to tell where the jungle ends and the ruins begin. There is no road to follow, only the faint impressions of those who have passed before. Some were hunters, others were hunted. The Orok and Azak fight over these lands, but their war is more than conflict. Something older drives them. The Orok, twisted in form, move like animals, their bodies marked by the past. The Azak, cruel in their rituals, leave no survivors. Their battles are not for land or resources. They fight for something unseen, something buried. A discovery halts your progress. A body stands impaled on sharpened wood. Limbs stretched out unnaturally, stripped of all but dried flesh. Survey appears and steps forward. She does not need to inspect the remains to understand. She sees her son, missing for days, has been left here as a warning. Surprisingly, she does not weep, nor does she break. She only curses those responsible. Apus, her grandson, must not know, not yet. Further ahead, another clue to the past. A book left behind by an explorer who was watching the Orok. Its pages describe something unnatural in them, something changed. The writer suspects their altered forms come from the same cataclysm that shattered the world. Though primitive, they understand something others do not. They do not fight against the land, they move with it. They live in a way that civilization is long forgotten. The jungle does not end. It only grows darker. But among the roots and ruins, something is found. Waterways, old and untouched. Their purpose is clear. If the city is to be revealed, the water must be lowered. The jungle will not make it easy. The tribes will not allow it. But the first step taken. Eventually, the land shifts. Thick undergrowth gives way to wet, uneven ground. The air is heavy, filled with the smell of decay. This is the Infested Barrens. A camp stands at the edge of the swamps, hastily built, barely holding together. Among them is a man named Sebastian Caraway, the writer of the expedition logs found in the ruins. The Izak tribe controls these lands. They take what they want and leave nothing behind. They train their creatures to kill, their warriors to hunt, their shamans to curse. At the heart of their bog, their leader, Ignekduk, rules with cruelty. Survey has no hesitation. She wants her dead. She does not ask for justice, only action. You make your way there, and the den of this leader is built from bones. And at the center, there she is, Ignekduk. Her body is covered in red markings, her weapon made from the remains of the children she has stolen. She doesn't hesitate, of course, and moves with purpose. Her strikes sharp, each wound meant to kill. You eventually do get the best of her after many tries, but the swamp does not change. The Izak will not disappear. Their hatred will not fade. The dead do not return, but something in the air shifts, if only slightly. With that done, the focus returns to the waterways. The entrance is found, but the way forward is blocked. The Vaal built their canals with purpose, and to use them, power is needed. The device requires something ancient. Soul cores. Artifacts created through sacrifice. They are rare, but not lost. Somewhere beyond the Barrens, they still exist. And so the search continues. You eventually find the wetlands. The ruins ahead are not like the rest of Exile. They were not meant to be explored. They were meant to be sealed. The structure stands apart from the jungle. Jikwani's Machinarium. A place built not for worship, not for war, but for creation. Inside, at the center of the room, a mechanism sits dormant. It needs power, but not from stone or metal. It needs something else. You guessed it, soul cores. Soul cores are the last remains of those sacrificed for progress. The Vaal found a way to strip a person down to their essence, binding it in a crystal to fuel their creations. The process was efficient, but unsustainable. Their labor force did not grow, it only withered. By the time they understood their mistake, it was too late. The search begins for the soul core. The deeper you go, the more of Jikwani's failed work is revealed. The writings of Jikwani are scattered throughout. His frustrations are clear. The demand for soul cores was insatiable back then, and he knew the cost, but the orders came from above, and he did not refuse. He could not refuse. Eventually, a core is found, still warm to the touch. It is small, but enough to reactivate the first mechanism. As it slides into place, the ruins respond. The air shifts, the ground hums. Then, the silence breaks. The constructs move. They do not question, they follow commands given centuries ago, and attack. Through the battle, the way forward is cleared. At the heart of the Machinarium lies the true source of power. A mural, its carvings deeper than the others, tells the final chapter of Jikwani's work. A powerful construct, or something close to it, holds a massive soul core at its center. And it is not dormant. The energy within the stone is not trapped, it is just waiting. The generators must be reactivated, their charge used to pry the core from its prison. Then, once you've reactivated those generators, you try to pry the soul core from the mural, from the construct. The ground shakes. The stone figure in the mural does not remain a carving. It moves. The Guardian is unlike the others. Its body is reinforced with the very power the Vaal sought to control. It fights to destroy. Depending on your build, the battle is long and the blows are heavy, but the construct is not what it once was. It falls, reaching towards the soul core, reaching for life. With the massive soul core in hand, the way back is open. The waterways will soon be drained. The ruins of Exile, buried for centuries, will be open again. The lake is gone. What remains is a city stripped bare by time. Stone streets, long buried, emerge from the muck, their surfaces warped by water and decay. Whatever was trapped beneath the water is free now. Survey does not hide her frustration. The lake was more than a barrier, it was protection. The Auroch and Azak will not hesitate to cross into new territory, and the horrors of the Vaal buried may not remain still. Oswald does not care about warnings, only that the ruins are now accessible. And Sin, well, he sees something else. If the device within the Ziggurat was meant to fight the Cataclysm, then this is the only chance to recover it. The entrance to the Ziggurat is unfortunately sealed. Alva is already there, studying the massive doors. The lock is missing its final piece. Without it, there is no way in. The answer lies somewhere deeper in the ruins of the city, within the remnants of a temple district once known as Agorat. The path into the city is not quiet. The creatures that stir in the dark are not human, but they were once. Their bodies swell with disease, their limbs move without purpose. Some drag themselves from the remains of buildings, others wait in the open, their swollen skin stretched to its limit. The things that grew beneath the water did not die, they changed. The temple district is worse. A cult formed here in the final days, a group that saw the destruction of their empire as the beginning of something greater. They took in the sick, the starving, and they fed them. What they ate is unclear, but their writings described it as something that brought enlightenment. Their leader remains, the Queen of Filth, hidden within the highest temple, surrounded by the remnants of her followers. The battle is slow, putrid, and quite entertaining. She eventually falls, but the temple does not change. The walls are still covered in the writings of those who followed her. The air is still thick with the weight of something unfinished. The city is far from cleansed. Thankfully, the key is found, an idol of gold, untouched by the filth around it. The way back is open. The inside of the Ziggurat awaits. The idol fits into the temple door. Mechanisms grown to life, gears shifting for the first time in centuries. The way into the temple of Kopek, the Ziggurat, opens. The Vaal still linger here. Their forms are not whole, corruption has stretched their bodies, stripped them of reason. They do not hesitate to attack. Through the temple corridors, the battle does not stop until the altar is reached. Quetzuli, High Priest of the Sun, waits. The power that sustains him is not his own. The artificial sun below the arena radiates its light, burning all but the corrupted. The battle is long, his powers bursting out of him in bright beams, but he falls all the same. Alva searches the altar, tracing the carvings with precision. The Vaal did not lock this place with keys, they locked it with lineage. The mechanism requires something livid, something that carries the mark of the Empire. Alva thinks of something, and cuts her palm open, her Vaal blood pouring down. The moment her blood touches the stone, the temple responds. The ground shakes, a section of the floor pulls away, carrying you upward. The temple ceiling opens, the machinery of the Ziggurat activating once more. The platform rises to the Ziggurat camp, the expedition looking around in confusion. But the awakening does not stop there. Stones shift, their patterns aligning, space bends, light folding inwards. A portal forms. Alva does not question it. She steps through, and you follow. The world changes, the ruins are gone, the broken city is now whole. You've traveled back in time to what feels like moments before the Vaal Cataclysm. The year 400 BIC. Streets stretch out beneath a sky unmarked by time. The Ziggurat is not abandoned anymore, but occupied, its steps lined with figures. The people of Exile turn, their faces full of fear when they see you, and so they run. Alva moves ahead. It seems that our presence is, unfortunately, not welcome. The Vaal react with violence. Defending yourself is just not a choice, it is a necessity. They will not listen to reason. The battle spills into the streets, and the truth becomes clear. Even here, even now, corruption lingers at the edges. The guards regroup, surrounding the streets. One of their warrior leaders steps forward, Napuatsi, an enforcer of the Vaal. She demands an answer. Who opened the gates? Who is of Vaal blood? Alva is the only one who can give one. She barely speaks, explaining herself, but before she can get to the end of her sentence, Napuatsi knocks her out. Alva falls unconscious before she hits the ground. Napuatsi spares no time. She orders Alva taken, then she turns her attention to you. There is no time for reason, only to fight. She immediately attacks you, and she does not falter, but she does not finish the battle either. When the moment comes, she vanishes. A crystal materializes in front of her, freezing time. She touches the crystal, seemingly potentially confused, and vanishes. Alva is gone. The guards dragged her into the depth of the city. For you, there is no time to waste. You move. If she is not found soon, she will not be found at all. You fight your way through the city in search of Alva, and quickly take note of something rather interesting. Indeed, you find the Apex of Filth once again. This is where you fought the Queen of Filth, but this time it's 400 BCI. Rot and decay are nowhere to be found. Instead, the streets are filled with festive decorations. Indeed, the people of the city are celebrating Atsiri and her imminent ascension. The closer you get to the Black Chambers, the more the streets are filled with blood and bodies. Piles of them from the sacrifices are in each corner. These sacrifices meant to fuel the ascension and the convening of Atsiri and the beast. And eventually, you find the Black Chambers, where Alva is being kept. The Chambers is where knowledge is gathered, where blood is weighed against progress. The corridors twist, each turn revealing new horrors. Alva is here, somewhere in the depth. They see her as an intrusion, something that should not exist. The constructs guarding the chambers are different from the ones in the Machinarium. These are not workers, they are weapons, built to hold the Empire together when its people could no longer be trusted to obey. Doriani's voice carries on some sort of intercom system. He is aware of the disturbance, aware of who has come. He does not flee, of course. He is too focused on his work, on the ritual that will ensure the Vaal's survival. He speaks as if his victory is assured, as if fate itself bends to his will. He does not understand that his time is already over. The testing pit is where it ends. Alva is bound, blood dripping onto the floor beneath her. Doriani stands next to his work. The battle against Doriani is tough. He does not fight with brute force. He bends the rules of the world around him, warping the very ground beneath his feet. But he is not immortal. He is not untouchable. His power is great, but it is not limitless. He falls, but he does not beg. He does not curse his failure. He only questions it. He does not understand how all his knowledge, all his sacrifices were not enough to save his civilization. He stares at the chamber around him, at the work that will never be finished, and for the first time, he doubts. The Vaal cannot be saved. The future has already been written. The Vaal will not ascend, they will vanish. Their greatest city left to rot beneath the earth. Alva, now freed, offers him a choice. Stay here and die, or leave everything behind and come back to the future to use his knowledge to defeat the beast, which threatens Rayclast once again. It's a fresh start, more than he deserves. He hesitates, but eventually agrees. The Vaal people are unaware that one of their greatest minds is abandoning them. You eventually all make your way back to our timeline, and the camp is different now. The others do not celebrate the return. Survey watches Doriani with suspicion. Oswald does not hide his discomfort. Sin, however, understands the value of what has been gained. Doriani is not a relic, he is knowledge made flesh. He knows the beast better than anyone. If there is a way to stop it, he is the one who can find it. But knowledge is not trust. Doriani speaks of a weapon, something older than the Vaal, something designed to fight corruption itself. The pieces of this weapon were scattered, lost to history, but he knows where to start. Engemakanui, the island of the Kauri. The future is no longer in Utsal. It lies across the sea, in the land of the Kauri, and that is where you head next. And this would be the end of Act 3, technically. But wait, there is way more. Now, at this point in time, this is February now, February 2025, only 3 acts are released. And this is where the cruel acts start, where you go back and do Act 1, 2, and 3 again. But at the end of Cruel Act 3, something happens. Something different. After defeating Doriani again, and just before heading back to your current timeline, the Cataclysm happens and cuts you short. The portal is nearly ready when the sky changes. A blind light spreads across the horizon faster than thought, swallowing the city. The ground shakes, structures collapse, the force of the explosion hits like a wave, and everything goes dark. You wake up inside the ziggurat, sealed off from the destruction. Outside, Exile is gone. The city is nothing but broken stone and shifting dust. The sky is not right. The air is thick, unmoving. The world above is lost. Alva is unharmed but shaken. Doriani moves quickly though, assessing what must be done. He knew this was coming, of course, and he does not call it a disaster. He calls it a process, a reality that cannot be reversed. The world is now uninhabitable, but survival is still possible. The ziggurat was built for this. It contains devices designed to manipulate space to create paths through what remains of Rayclast. The corruption that spreads through the land after the Cataclysm must be controlled. The survivors outside are not where they were before. Their bodies hold the corruptions, their minds breaking under its weight. Doriani does not see them as people anymore. He sees them as a problem. Beyond the refuge, the wasteland is hostile. The land has shifted, structures have collapsed or changed, and the people who remain are not entirely human. They form groups. Warlords are merging to claim what little is left. Doriani sees them as a threat. He believes they cannot be allowed to persist. And there is another danger. Something else survived. Something that came from his own work. The past cannot be undone. Or can it? Anyway, the only thing left is to push forward, to take control of what remains. The corruption must be purged. The world must be stabilized. There is no other option. And this is where the endgame starts and you get to mapping. So, just to be clear here, my interpretation is that Act 3, the ending of Act 3, where you go back to your current timeline and you're about to go to Karui, is the actual ending of Act 3. The ending of Act 3, Cruel, where you stay behind and there's the Cataclysm, I think this is something that's more of an endgame feature. There is still supposed to be a few acts after Act 3, so just keep that in mind. The ending of Act 3 is us finding an ally and going to the Karui tribes to find that weapon, or to find information anyway, to defeat the beast. And that's it for Act 3. Now, it was incredibly interesting diving deeper into the Vaal Cataclysm and what led that civilization to collapse. Although the time travel element can be quite confusing at times, I think when you lay everything out, it does make sense in a way. Although I say that, but it becomes so much more confusing in the endgame. I might have to make a video about that. The important thing to know is that we now have an ally that can help us defeat the beast, and that we are heading for the homeland of the Karui people. I wonder what is next. Make sure to subscribe to find out more. Hit the thumbs up button, and we will see you in the next one.